Not everyone welcomed the light. As Jesus walked from village to village, with healing in his hands and truth on his tongue, the crowds grew. Desperate hearts pressed in. The broken, the curious, the hopeful. They followed him through deserts, over hillsides, and into courtyards where no teacher had ever gone. But with every step forward, shadows stirred. Some in the crowds rejoiced loudly, proclaiming him as the Messiah. Others stood back, uncertain, trying to reconcile their expectations with this carpenter who touched the unclean and welcomed children to sit on his lap. Whispers spread through neighborhoods and families. Fathers warned their sons to be cautious. Mothers pulled daughters back from the edge of the crowd. Elders argued in hushed voices about prophecy, power, and the risk of getting too close to a man who could draw both miracles and enemies with the same breath. Not all hearts rejoiced when blind men saw. Not every leader applauded when dignity was restored to women society had shamed. The same light that healed wounds began to expose rot, and exposure is uncomfortable. The whispers started quietly at first. In the temple courts and council chambers, among the teachers of the law and the keepers of tradition. By what authority does he do these things? He eats with sinners. He heals on the Sabbath. He forgives sins. Who but God can do that? They weren't just theological debates. They were alarms, urgent, anxious reactions from men whose control was slipping away. The Pharisees had spent their lives climbing the ladder of spiritual authority. Their robes, their rules, their reverence among the people had defined them. But Jesus didn't play by their rules. He healed with a word, forgave without sacrifice, and taught with authority they couldn't explain. He was dangerous, not because he broke the law, but because he fulfilled it in a way that exposed their failure to love. The old world felt its grip loosening, and it didn't like it. Jesus wasn't just challenging broken systems. He was embodying something that made those systems tremble. His presence revealed their emptiness, their pride, their addiction to control and appearance. And slowly, resistance gave way to rage. The Pharisees and Sadducees, usually divided, found a common enemy in him. Rome watched from a distance, cautious. And Judas, silent, calculating, listened more than he spoke. But Jesus was not afraid of confrontation. He didn't seek it, but he didn't run from it either. He called out the hypocrisy of those who honor God with their lips but had hearts far from him. He cleansed the temple, overturning tables not out of fury but out of justice, because holy places had become marketplaces, and the sacred had been sold for silver. Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You shut the door of the kingdom in people's faces. You yourselves do not enter, nor will you let those enter who are trying to. He wasn't angry because people were imperfect. He was angry because leaders used God's name to keep others in chains. But still, even in confrontation, his eyes held sorrow, not hate. He wept over Jerusalem. He longed to gather its people like a mother and gathers her chicks under her wings. He came to save, not destroy. But he knew that light would not be tolerated forever by those who loved the dark. And the disciples, they saw the tension growing. They watched the faces in the crowds change, from wonder to suspicion, from awe to accusation. Still, they followed, but they also questioned. Around campfires, they whispered to one another, "Why does he provoke them so openly? Isn't he afraid?" Some nights, Peter clenched his jaw when Jesus walked too close to the Pharisees. James and John argued about whether he should confront or avoid. Even Judas, still silent, seemed to be taking notes more than making decisions. But they didn't fully understand the cost. They still hoped for triumph without tragedy, for glory without blood. They expected thrones, not thorns. How could they? This kingdom, this revolution of love and truth, wasn't just going to challenge culture. It was going to clash with everything the world had built on fear. Because wherever Jesus went, he set people free. And freedom always threatens those who benefit from bondage. This isn't just ancient history. Resistance to truth, to mercy, to redemption, it still lives in the hearts of men. It lives in systems built on self-preservation. It lives in quiet, polite churches that keep grace in a box. It even lives in us. When we cling to comfort, when we defend our pride, when we excuse injustice in the name of tradition. When light comes, it does not just illuminate what's beautiful. It also exposes what we hoped no one would see. And like the leaders of Jesus' day, we too are tempted to push the light away when it shines too close. The same resistance he faced still whispers to us. Stay safe. Stay hidden. Stay the same. But Jesus didn't come to leave us the same. He touched the leper and exposed the cruelty of social exclusion. He forgave the adulteress and dismantled the mob's righteousness. He healed on the Sabbath and showed that compassion mattered more than rules. He told parables that pulled back the curtain on God's heart and revealed how far the hearts of men had drifted. One day, he entered the synagogue, as he often did. A man was there with a withered hand. The religious leaders watched closely, their eyes cold, their arms folded. It was the Sabbath. Would he heal? Would he break their rules again? Jesus looked at them, not with fear, but with sorrow. Is it lawful to do good on the Sabbath or to do evil? To save life or to kill? Silence. He looked at the man, reached out and healed him. The crowd gasped. The man stared at his restored hand in awe. And in the shadows, the leader's resolve hardened. From that day, they began to plot how to destroy him. And slowly, the storm began to gather. The miracle worker became a marked man. The teacher became a threat. The Messiah became a problem to solve. But still, he kept going. He healed the 10 lepers, even when only one returned to say thank you. He raised the widow's son. He fed thousands with a handful of loaves and fish, and then reminded them not to follow just for bread, but for life. He knew what was coming. He felt it in the sidelong glances of temple guards, in the carefully crafted questions from scribes who no longer smiled. He saw it in the crowds, how awe had begun to give way to agitation. How people who once begged for miracles now muttered doubts behind cupped hands. He knew the plot thickening behind closed doors, the alliances being forged in shadows, the coins already glinting in a purse that hadn't yet left his side. He knew the betrayal was near, and it broke his heart even more than it threatened his life. He carried not just the weight of the cross to come, but the grief of hearts that would never receive him. He remembered Isaiah's prophecy. He was despised and rejected by men, a man of sorrows and acquainted with grief. He saw it playing out with every passing day. People who wanted miracles but not surrender. Crowds who shouted his name today but would turn away tomorrow. And one of his own, someone who had eaten with him, laughed with him, walked miles beside him, was preparing to hand him over for silver. Still, he loved, and still, he walked forward. Every step was a declaration. Love would not back down. Every healing, every teaching, every act of mercy was a rebellion against despair. He was not just walking toward the cross. He was walking through every stronghold that had kept humanity chained. Because light cannot be extinguished by darkness. Not then, not now. And so the resistance rose. And love did not flinch, because love that bends to fear isn't love at all. Love, real love, walks into risk. It embraces danger to rescue the endangered. And that's what he was doing. For them. For us. So when resistance rose, he did not raise a sword. He raised his voice, his hands, and ultimately his cross. Because the kingdom was coming, and nothing could stop it. And still, the question remains, what happens when that kingdom comes close to us? What happens when Jesus overturns the tables in our hearts? When he challenges the quiet agreements we've made with fear, pride, and comfort? Will we follow when the path leads through resistance? Or will we, like so many then, stand back in silence? This is not just a story about what happened. It's a story about what still happens. When light comes and love calls, will we welcome him or will we resist?